Never defend yourself. Machiavelli already knew that defense is the gesture that exposes the weak. You grew up hearing the opposite. Explain yourself. Prove you're right. Don't let anyone speak badly about you. But it's exactly that instinct that keeps you small. Every time you rush to justify yourself, you hand over power. You place the other person as the judge, and you kneel asking for absolution. And in the end, even after speaking, explaining, and trying to convince, you still end up being seen as guilty. Defense doesn't clear your image, it destroys it. The more you justify yourself, the more you look insecure, small, desperate. It's a vicious circle. You speak, they don't believe you. You speak again, and your authority crumbles in front of everyone. That's the moment when the forbidden rule that only the strong can bear to hear comes in. And here I, Wolfchiavelli, will deliver to you without anesthesia what no one dares to say. Defending yourself is the mark of a weak man, and never defending yourself is the key to breaking the order and taking power over anyone. If you stayed until now, it's because you entered the right video. 3 ways to never defend yourself. First way, since childhood, you were taught to react. The phrase hammered into your head was simple. Never let an insult go unanswered. If someone accuses you, respond. If someone attacks you, strike back. If someone exposes you, run to clear your name, and you obeyed, because that is the most human reflex. To protect the ego, to show you're not weak, to try to convince others that you're right. The problem is that this automatic reaction is exactly what makes you weak. Every time you rush to defend yourself, you step into the enemy's game. You prove that you need their validation in order to exist. I know that's your desire, to explode, to respond, to prove you are not what they say. I felt that impulse too. But it was Machiavelli who opened the way. And I, Wolfchiavelli, as the servant of his coldness, tell you, that instinct is the poison that corrodes your authority, because while you speak, the other stays silent and observes. What I'm about to show you now are 3 ways to do the opposite, to never defend yourself, to never fall into that trap. They are 3 Machiavellian strategies that reverse the order of power. Second way, the inversion of power. The one who defends himself accepts the role of the accused. The court is already set against him, and his own voice only reinforces that position. The Machiavellian man, however, never accepts that terrain. He does not play on the enemy's field. He creates his own. When attacked, he does not respond. He accuses. He does not justify himself. He shifts the attention. This is the second way of never defending yourself, to invert the order of the game, to turn the accuser into the accused, the aggressor into the defendant. Machiavelli said that the prince must control the narrative, and controlling the narrative is exactly this, not chasing innocence, but placing the other under suspicion. This inversion is cruel because it demands disregarding the truth. It doesn't matter who is right. What matters is who holds the position of power. While the weak man begs, "It's not true," the strong man casts the shadow. The one who accuses too much has something to hide. Do you see? It is not defense, it is strategic attack. And when you master this inversion, the world sees the difference. The accuser, who once seemed in control, now struggles to clear his own name, and you remain cold, simply observing. In that contrast, everyone sees who governs and who crawls. Third way, the iron image. The third way is the rarest and the most lethal. The man who never defends himself builds around him an aura of indestructibility. He does not need to prove anything, because his posture is already the proof. Machiavelli said, "Men judge more by what they see than by what they understand." And what they see, when someone does not defend himself, is a fortress. Accusations may rain down, slanders may pour in, but the fortress stands tall. Time passes, and while the accuser wears himself out, the unshaken man grows in the eyes of everyone, not by words, but by their absence, not by defense, but by solidity. But here's the price. You will be called cold, arrogant, insensitive. And it is precisely this that creates respect. Because the one who defends himself seeks understanding, while the one who does not defend himself imposes fear. The fortress does not explain, does not justify, does not ask for acceptance. It simply exists, solid and inevitable. This is the iron image that separates leaders from herds. And I, as a servant of Machiavelli, tell you, when you master this third level, you are no longer an ordinary man. You are power in its purest form, the wall before which everyone bows. Psychoanalysis deeply examined. The human ego is a hysterical child. It cannot stand being accused. It cannot stand being misunderstood. It cannot stand being seen as weak. The ego's first reaction is to scream, "I am not that." Freud already said it. Defense is the manifestation of the unconscious trying to preserve an image of itself. But that image is fragile, always in pieces. And the more you try to defend it, the more you prove it can be destroyed. Silence, on the other hand, is the proof that you have already transcended that childish need. When you do not defend yourself, you not only reject the other's tribunal, you kill within yourself the defendant who begs for absolution. Machiavelli knew this on another level. He never wrote about ego, but he wrote about appearance and virtù. The prince who defends himself puts at risk his appearance of power because he shows that he depends on others' approval. The prince who does not defend himself, however, preserves the illusion of strength. And remember, in politics and in life, appearance is more powerful than truth. The weak live by truth, trying to prove facts, cleaning reputations. The strong live by appearance, and therefore, they rule. I, as a servant of Machiavelli, learned not to beg for justice, but to impose image. The world does not respect innocence, it respects solidity. In psychoanalysis, this gesture has another name: repression of the neurotic compulsion. The neurotic needs to explain himself all the time, to justify himself, to be accepted. The cold, Machiavellian man does not. He suffocates that need. He feels the fire of accusation burning inside, but instead of reacting, he transforms that fire into ice. That repression is what separates him from the masses. While everyone else is in the childish theater of, "I am good, I am just," he remains silent and rises. And that silence silences others as well, because emptiness is deafening. The wolf understands this instinctively. He does not bark against accusation. He does not scream when provoked. He watches. He waits. He lets the enemy wear himself out with words until his throat is dry. And when he strikes, he does not need to explain anything. He only bites. That is how the predator lives, not by justifying his hunger, but by embracing his nature. When I tell you never to defend yourself, it is because I know every defense is the bark of a dog, and the one who barks too much never bites. The psychological impact of this on others is devastating. Silence, inversion, and the fortress create fear, and fear is the essence of power. Make no mistake, people do not respect those who defend themselves. They respect those who have no need to. When you do not explain yourself, you become an enigma. And human beings fear what they do not understand. That fear is stronger than admiration, stronger than love. It is the cement of lasting power. Machiavelli already said, "It is better to be feared than loved." I add, it is better to be feared for your silence than loved for your words. And here lies the reason why 99% of men fail. They cannot endure that coldness. They feel the sting of accusation and rush to justify themselves. They still carry within them the boy who wants to be accepted, who cries when he is not believed, and that is why they never govern anything beyond their own misery. But the man who learns never to defend himself kills that boy and is born again, no longer human in the fragile sense, but as something inhuman, cold, impenetrable. That is the servant of Machiavelli. That is the wolf I teach you to awaken within yourself. Historical unfolding. All of history is a stage where one can see who defended themselves and lost, and who refused to defend themselves and ruled. Julius Caesar, accused countless times of wanting to be king in Rome, never justified himself. He did not say, "It's not true." He did not beg for trust. He simply advanced, seized power, and let his actions speak. The result? Those who accused him of ambition were right, but they died insignificant. Caesar, who never defended himself, was crowned by eternity. The contrast is clear. Those who speak too much die in oblivion. Those who remain silent create legend. In the Middle Ages, many kings were destroyed not by swords, but by their own justifications. When they tried to cleanse themselves before the people, They lost aura, they lost respect. The king who kneels to convince ceases to be king. Louis XIV, the Sun King, followed the Machiavellian law. He never explained himself, he only imposed himself. His phrase is the symbol of this: L'État, c'est moi. The state is me. There is no defense there, only imposition. And that is why, to this day, his image still shines as the archetype of absolute power. In philosophy, Nietzsche showed the same cruelty. He attacked Christian morality precisely because it creates defensive men, full of guilt, always trying to prove they are good. Nietzsche despised that need. For him, the strong man does not justify himself. He simply affirms his will to power. The weak seek explanations to be accepted. The strong create values, impose their vision. Defense is slavery. The absence of defense is creation. In literature, the same archetype appears again and again. In The Prince, Machiavelli does not dedicate a single line to teaching how to defend against moral accusations. On the contrary, he teaches how to maintain the appearance of virtue even without being virtuous. This is genius because it shows that defense does not matter, only performance does. Shakespeare understood this as well. Hamlet, confronted with suspicions and power games, does not run to explain himself. He feigns madness, creates doubt, manipulates appearances. It is the same principle, not to defend oneself, but to govern perception. The archetype is always the same, the sovereign who does not respond. It is the cold, distant figure who remains standing while everyone around him writhes. The people may hate him, murmur against him, accuse him, but because he does not defend himself, he remains untouchable. That distance breeds fear, and fear breeds power. I, Wolfchiavelli, tell you, this is the purest form of dominion, not fighting on others' ground, but letting them exhaust themselves until they die alone. And behind all this lies a profound psychological truth. Men do not respect those who speak. They respect those who endure. The absence of defense creates mystery, and mystery creates myth. That is why leaders, generals, emperors, and even literary characters who never explained themselves remain alive in collective memory. They appear larger than life because they never lowered themselves to beg for acceptance. What history shows, philosophy confirms, and literature illustrates is simple. To defend oneself is human. Not to defend oneself is to rule. Every time you defend yourself, you have already lost. This is the Machiavellian law. No coach dares to speak. The man who opens his mouth to justify himself begs for recognition, kneels before someone else's tribunal, and surrenders his own authority. That is why you remain small, because you still believe that being understood is a sign of power. It is not. Power is not born from acceptance. It is born from fear, and no one fears the man who explains himself. When you learn never to defend yourself, something breaks inside you. The boy who wanted acceptance dies, and the predator who needs no explanation is born. This rebirth is brutal because it tears away the fragile humanity that begs for understanding. But it is in that emptiness that coldness arises. And that coldness is what separates rulers from the ruled. Those who keep defending themselves will always be defendants in life's court. Those who refuse to explain themselves will always be the judges. The world does not respect innocence. It respects solidity. No one remembers those who cried to clear their name. Everyone remembers those who bore the weight of accusation and remained standing. To defend yourself is to beg. Believe me, to refuse is to command. You have no choice. The difference is abysmal. It is the difference between the beggar of respect and the owner of respect. And I warn you, the price is high. You will be called cold, cruel, arrogant. And it is exactly that which builds your dominion. Men do not follow those who justify themselves. They follow those who seem untouchable. Silence, inversion of power, and the iron image are not just tactics. They are the invisible crown of the ruler. The man who learns never to defend himself no longer lives like others. He rules over others. If you endured hearing this to the end, it means something in you already understands. There is no turning back. From here on, either you kill the habit of defending yourself once and for all, or you will remain small, crawling for approval. This choice is not comfortable, but it is inevitable. Silence is the blade that separates the strong from the weak. If you made it this far, don't forget to leave your like and comment on this video. Your interaction is very important to grow our community. Thank you, and greetings from Wolfchiavelli.